Family Fights with Kyle Harrison and Matthew Blumenthal. Boom, there's your intro. How'd I do?
All right, we are all recording.
What is up, people of the MMA world? Welcome back to another episode of the Family Fights podcast. I'm Kyle Harrison. With me, as always, is my little cousin, Matthew Blumenthal.
How we doing, everyone?
And first off, I just wanted to apologize that I wasn't with y'all on Monday. I was recovering from being sick, had a little tummy troubles, long weekend drinking. I was just throwing up, and I didn't feel like making you guys listen to me go through all of that on air. So I hope you enjoyed Matthew's solo episode, and I'm so happy to be back with you guys.
And Matthew is happy that Kyle is back.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to be back with you guys for breakdowns today. Anyways, some news from the Family Fights cousins. We are going to UFC 272. Very exciting news. We're going to celebrate Matthew's birthday and Matthew's older brother, my other cousin Jason's 21st birthday. So thank you to Aunt Katie for getting us those tickets and for bringing us all out to Vegas to celebrate with the family. It's going to be fun. It's been a while since we've done a whole family trip like this.
Yeah, I don't know have we ever? I don't think so.
Yeah,
we did?
used to do them to Chicago to see Bears games.
Oh, that's right.
Kids.
I remember we also went to a Bears-Giants game where the final score was 9-3. That was torturous.
Yeah, so it's definitely been a while that we've all traveled together. It'll be fun and shared a hotel room.
Hell yeah.
Times.
We got to get Jason fucked up.
Yeah, definitely. Going to get Jason fucked up. We're going to get him high. He'll be 21, so I'll take him out to the bars.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Matthew will not be joining us on those endeavors, but
if you guys don't know my brother, I love him. Polar opposite of me. And probably polar opposite of Kyle as well, because Kyle and I are pretty
not a partier. He's a great kid, very straight edge.
Yeah, dude, that kid's going to be – he's so
God
smart.
bless Jason. He's so smart. He's a volunteer EMT, spends most of his time at the station rescuing people.
And he saves our asses when we party.
Oh, yeah. He saves our asses when we party. And he's also our audio advisor for the podcast.
Hell yeah.
He got me this whole microphone set up and taught me how to set it up. Without him, I would have nothing.
So. Yeah, that's what he's going to school for now.
Shout out Jason and shout out Aunt Katie. It's going to be a super fun trip to Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
Anyways, let's get right into our episode today with some current events. First, Deiveson Figueiredo talking about the fourth Moreno fight, as a lot of people are, but he wants $1 million for it. I think this fight is inevitable to happen. I don't think it should or will happen right away. I think it's time to let some other flyweights get a chance at the title. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think it should happen, but not right away, because even when people fight 2 times in a row, you talk about log-jamming a division and kind of holding everyone back, and then especially when you have like a DC and Stipe instance where they're fighting 3 times in a row back-to-back-to-back, just like Moreno and Figgy just did. When was the last time we saw any other title challenger at 125, let alone we've never even seen a 4th fight. I can only imagine how much of a logjam it's going to create if they fight for a 4th time in a row. And when he's talking about the $1 million, I agree that if Moreno gets a good win and Figueiredo defends his title, I feel like this fight is big enough that the winner could get $1 million, but he's not going to get that $1 million by just going onto Twitter and asking for it. It's kind of just like anything in life. If I wanted something, I'm not going to be able to just say I would like it and it's given to me. He needs to go out and he needs to promote this fight, because Figgy doesn't promote fights as much as he should. But he needs to give me a reason to watch a 4th fight. Like, what is different from the first 3? We saw 3 fights. They were great fights. Okay, but I've already given you 3 pay-per-views of my money to watch you guys fight. Why should I give you a 4th? So I think they need to do that through promotions, through talking, because when Moreno talks, people listen, and through getting some really good wins, because if both of them get dominant wins, I think this fight can easily do 7 figures.
Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned, what is going to make me want to watch the 4th fight? I think if I'm Deiveson Figueiredo and I'm trying to think about the best way to promote this fight, I'm almost dropping completely the way that I've been doing it. He's been taking this hostile approach at Brandon Moreno, making him the enemy. What I would almost do, maybe this is just me talking as a real fight fan. I'm not sure if the casuals will buy into this, but I mean, the reason I want to see the fourth fight is because after 3 fights, I still don't know who the better fighter is. And I think anybody who's a real fight fan will agree with that. Like, we do not know. I don't think you could tell me who's a better fighter. And
No,
I can't tell
I can't.
you who's a better fighter. And so that should be the main selling point of the fight. I think a personal feud is not going to do as good a job of selling this fight as it would be if both of them came to each other and said, we had 3 wars. We had 2 wars and 1 fluke, I guess. Maybe not a fluke, but one different outcome. And now we need to settle it. And now it's finally time to see who the better man is. And I don't know. I feel like I would like to see that more than them sitting on stage and Davis and Figueiredo trying to curse him out in broken English.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you'll be very happy to know that this week my thoughts on Dana White are ever so slightly starting to change.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
How so?
Dana White is a great promoter. And I'll even tell you, I was driving down to the shore yesterday and I was listening to a podcast and I turned it off and I just ranted. I kind of thought of it like I was on this podcast and I gave myself like a 3 or 4 minute rant about how bad of a job Dana White was doing. I'll spare you the 4 minutes right now, but the main point of it is that Dana White promotes to those who already watch the UFC. He's promoting for people who have already watched UFC to buy another event. He does a poor job at trying to get people who have never seen the UFC to watch this event. And I noticed that mainly, I was thinking about it the other day, before that I got into fighting, never once did I see anything about a pay-per-view. Never once did I see anything on SportsCenter about a fight that just happened. And the only reason I got into this sport was Conor McGregor, and that was because he was boxing. Boxing did more promoting for MMA than Dana White did for his own company, which was an issue to me. So Dana White needs to learn how to promote to people who have never seen the UFC. And instead of standing up on stage at the press conferences and just going, all right, who's got the first question? His first paragraph should be everything about why you need to watch this fight. So if there was a press conference for Moreno Figueiredo 4, he needs to get up on stage and say, listen, these 2 guys sitting next to me, they fought for an hour. I have no idea who the better fighter is. This guy probably won 2 wars, and this guy had an extremely dominant performance. You need to tune in on Saturday night. I don't care what else is going on. This is the thing to watch on Saturday night, instead of just saying, okay, first question, please go. Just piss me off.
Right. Or if that's your point, he needs to go himself on SportsCenter. Or he needs to go himself on the big ESPN shows and give that speech, because nobody's watching the UFC press conference who isn't already a UFC fan.
That's a good point.
And he kind of already does that on his Instagram. Like, he looks at the card and he says, oh, if you don't know it now, you know. You know those videos?
Yeah, also don't tell me that one day before the fight. Start telling me that 3 weeks before the fight, please.
Exactly. And putting it on your Instagram where only people who follow you are going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who follows you probably already watches the UFC and probably already knows exactly what's happening on Saturday.
He just needs to go back to vintage Dana White.
Dana White. I was going to say, I don't think you can completely discredit him and say he doesn't know how to get new fans, because when he took over the UFC, they had no fans, and now look what they have. So I think he's just kind of lost his way, and he's gotten complacent.
I was just saying, do you think he got complacent with the amount of viewers that he had? I mean, this sport blew up, but there's still not as many people that I believe could be watching this. So maybe if Dana White went back, because if you guys didn't know, before the UFC was as massive as it is today, Dana White was going on every single podcast, every single show, giving 20-minute interviews everywhere, promoting fights, and that's the reason the UFC got here. So Dana White's at a plateau. He needs to continue rising before he just stays on a level plane and lets someone else catch up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think maybe part of it is that he's wary of growing too fast, because that is one thing that kills a lot of businesses. So maybe that it's a little bit of anxiety over that. But we should move on to our next topic. That is Jiri Prochazka starting camp at Fight Ready with Henry Cejudo. Speaking of Figgy, who just had a very successful fight out of that camp. I think this is an awesome move for Jiri. There's no secret that the biggest hole in his game is his wrestling, and so he's going exactly where he needs to go to work on that. And also, it's no secret that Henry Cejudo is a genius at fighting. So I think to have somebody with a wild style like Jiri Prochazka, and then to have somebody like Henry Cejudo in his corner to help rein that in, this could be a really deadly combo.
The reason I think these fighters going to Henry Cejudo is becoming so deadly is because it's different than going to see Daniel Cormier. It's different than going to see Khabib. Because one thing that Henry Cejudo did extremely well was mix striking into wrestling. He mixed the martial arts extremely well. Might be one of the better mixers of the various arts that we've ever seen. So when you have...
And his fight IQ is the highest of everyone you just mentioned by far.
And so if he can get these extremely high-level strikers, there's a difference in teaching someone how to strike and how to wrestle, and then a coach teaching you how to get from the striking to the wrestling. And I think that is where Henry Cejudo shines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also he definitely shines in making game plans and analyzing fights. I mean, even in the countdown, you saw for 270, you saw how much time he spent with Davison Figueiredo watching film, showing Davison his own film to really solidify the points that he's giving Davison in training, to like show him, hey, these are my techniques. This is how I made them work. You can see them work when I win championships. And now I'm going to teach them to you in the gym. I think that's something really powerful, especially to a younger, Yuri's not young per se, but to an athlete chasing the title, to have that sort of confidence from a former champion
and what you
like
said,
Cejudo is huge.
And what you said is very important, being able to see Cejudo do it. Because there's something much different in a guy telling you that this will work and him going and showing you, this is what I did right here, let's go learn that. But something I'm going to look out for is now that Cejudo's back in the USADA testing pool and he's going to fight again, I'm 100%
I heard that was just a rumor. I heard Henry said that was a rumor. That is not true.
Okay, well, I say this. If Henry Cejudo fights again, I will 100% look into fading the hell out of him. Because I think there's a chance that with so many fighters coming to Cejudo to start learning, he might be too focused on other guys that when he starts his own fight camp, he might have a hard time putting in as much work as he used to. So there's a chance that I might fade him if he ever comes back and still has all these fighters.
I would assume that if Henry Cejudo is starting a fight camp, that he is not taking any other fighters under his
He
wing
might
at that
not
time.
take on fighters, but just because you're not taking on a fighter doesn't mean you're not working with them at that time.
True. Okay, moving on very quickly. I just wanted to talk about Francis Ngannou. It's official. He'll be out for at least 9 months. He's getting knee surgery, and he's taking a trip back to Cameroon, which is exactly what happened the last time that they pulled an interim title on him. So I think history is just repeating itself right here, and we're certainly going to see another interim heavyweight title by the end of the year. What do you think?
I definitely do. And by the way, paper straws suck ass.
Oh yeah.
They're
no, terrible.
Dude, it's fucking melting. But I definitely think we'll see. An interim belt, and I mean, like you said, we said it here first on the Family Fights pod. We had a bunch of other people saying it. A little Stipe Miocic versus John Jones.
And you see what John Jones just posted on Instagram?
Yeah, he said
he just posted that he wants to see it. The greatest heavyweight of all time versus the greatest light heavyweight of all time. I'm down. That's what John Jones said. It's happening. You heard it here first. It's fucking happening. That's basically confirmation, as far as I'm concerned, that John Jones and Stipe Miocic are going to fight.
Hold on. We've seen John Jones say some shit before and then not fight. But did you see what?
Yeah, but he has to. The position he's in. If he doesn't take this fight,
he doesn't ever have to fight again in the position he's in.
Who else is he gonna fight?
It doesn't matter. He could keep. I promise you, he cannot fight for 5 years, but every 3 months he opens his mouth and boom, he's right back in the conversation, no matter what.
True. Yeah.
But did you see what Superfan said on MMA Twitter? He posted the whole thing like best light heavyweight versus greatest heavyweight, and Superfan tweets, "Oh yeah, Stipe versus Johnny Walker. That's a great fight." Because, clearly Johnny Walker's the best light heavyweight.
That's comedy. Anyways, moving on to our last.
Dude, I literally can't get the drink out of the straw.
I think you just need to sip it from the cup. Anyways, last current events topic really quickly. I just wanted to mention Alexander Gustafsson is making his return at heavyweight against Big Ben Rothwell. This is fucking insane. This is sanctioned murder, as we like to say here. This fight should not be happening.
Dude,
insane.
If Gustafsson is even 50% of what he used to be, you might see a man die in the octagon.
The man who gave John Jones probably his hardest fight in the octagon ever in his career.
And no disrespect to Rothwell, because he's a good fighter, but he's just not Gustafsson. And
There's levels. There's levels to this, and Gustafsson is probably 6 levels above Ben Rothwell.
I hope that we see Gustafsson come back and just have a late career resurgence and get himself right back into that title picture, because I think he's a really fun guy. And now that you have John Jones coming back, let's say a year down the line, Gustafsson had a few good wins, and John Jones is now the title holder. Do we get a third fight?
I don't know. All right, let's move on to the bulk of this episode. That is the UFC Vegas 47 breakdown. Super excited to be back breaking down the entire card for you guys, all 13 fights. We're going to be giving you our take on every fight, and then we're going to be giving you our best bets. So that's going to be 1 straight bet, 1 prop bet, and 1 parlay for the card, so you guys can make some money with us tomorrow. Starting with our first fight, Jack Hermansson plus 180 versus Sean Strickland minus 225. Matthew, what do you got for us?
Oh, this is a really good. First of all, this is a really good card overall. This is a good fight. I'm really interested to see what Sean Strickland does under Eric Nixick. I think it's gonna be very cool to watch. I was watching his fights against Brendan Allen. Sean showed. I mean, he has some great striking offense. He might have some of the best boxing offense we see in the UFC. But I just think his striking defense really, really lacks. I think he gets hit a lot. His head doesn't move off the center line, and his feet don't move. And I'm going to take back the striking offense comment because his hands are great, but his feet don't move with his punches, and that can be an issue sometimes because guys could get out of range. And it's very important that you take steps with your punches. But we also saw that he's very confident on the ground. If he gets on top or on bottom, he's a very underrated ground game. And then I watched his fight against Jotko, and Jotko moved around a lot more and still got walked down by Sean. Sean is the type of guy that will take the center of the octagon, and he will not give it back. He's very good at ring control. He has a piston of a jab, and he might have some of the best precision I've ever seen. When I was watching his fight against Jotko, it looked like 100% of his punches were landing. And then moving on to Hermansson, I really like Hermansson as a person. Listening to him in interviews, he seems like a really happy guy, a guy you would want to be friends with, but I just don't think his fighting skills are where they need to be at this point in his career. He seems very tentative to get inside. You saw in his fight against Vettori, every time he throws a jab, he's leaning his head back, trying to not get hit. He has bad footwork. He doesn't get inside. And even, he's very good on the ground. He might be one of the better grapplers in the division. But I saw him, I think it was against Shabazian. He jumped in, most beautiful entry to a single leg I've seen in a while, got it perfectly, and it looked like he had one of those, like, my controller died moments. And he kind of just sat down, and he didn't turn the corner. He didn't do anything. So I don't know what happened. Both these guys have very good cardio. They're both very tough guys, but I just think it's going to be Sean Strickland by a mile.
Okay. I don't know. I am inclined to disagree with you, and I'm very tempted by the dog shot here. You know, like
a lot of people are. I don't see it at all, though.
Like Matthew, I'll tell you why. Like Matthew said, Sean Strickland is basically a pure boxer. He's accurate as fuck, and he has amazing cardio, and he always wins his fights by volume. Like, he doesn't have a ton of finishes. Not to mention, he's a fucking psychopath.
His
he's
interviews
absolutely
are nuts.
Psychopathic. I mean, according to Eric Nixick, he always tries to spar Francis at full power in the gym, which is just heinous. His wrestling is pretty solid defensively. He hasn't been taken down once since his Usman fight in 2017. However, nobody's really tried to take him down since, so we can't really speak too much on his defensive wrestling. And Hermansson's path to victory is clearly wrestling. Like Matthew said, he's great on the ground. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's a fantastic offensive wrestler. He just had a wrestling match with Khamzat Chimaev. Obviously, Khamzat Chimaev is strong and ragdolls everybody, but Hermansson held his own the whole time.
Also, I want to make a point about that Khamzat fight. Don't hold that against Jack, because that was freestyle wrestling, which Jack is. That's Khamzat's part of the woods. So go ahead.
Right, that's not what Jack does. Anyways, I think he might be able to force Strickland to the ground late and win that way. What really worries me is 2 fights ago in the Marvin Vettori fight. I know Matthew mentioned his jab didn't look pretty in that fight, but what really has me worried is he had a great start, but Marvin's cardio and Marvin's standing pressure really got to him late in the fight, and he was able to force Hermansson to stay on his feet, which is not good for Hermansson. That being said, his striking has improved a lot since he started in the UFC. He used to be like this real herky-jerky, rigid striker. He's definitely loosened up. He held his own against Edmund Shabazian in the first round, who's a fantastic striker, before he was able to get that fight to the ground and win a wrestling decision, which is what he does. And he had this quote in an interview. I have it in my notes that I thought was really important. He says, "I think it's important to not get stuck in his type of game," Sean Strickland. "He really likes to stand in front of his opponents and swing with big punches, and he has the stamina to do it for the full 5 rounds. He likes to push the pace, keep a high volume, but so do I. And I also think I have more things to offer in wrestling and grappling." I really like hearing fighters talk like that, recognizing their opponent's strengths and also recognizing their weaknesses and recognizing how their strengths can play into their opponent's weaknesses. So I really like the dog here. Also, dogs have won in every main event so far this year. You have Cater, you have Francis, you have Ryan Bader. I don't know. So I'm tempted to stay on the dog train. My pick is Hermansson by decision, maybe even a sub in rounds 4 or 5.
I got one last point.
Yeah.
Every time Sean Strickland hurts his opponent, I've never seen a man who is such a maniac stay so calm. A lot of guys will get jittery and try to finish a fight. Sean never shows that he's worried, excited, or anything. He'll talk shit to his opponent, but he always stays so calm, and I think a calm fighter is a very dangerous fighter. And Vettori and Sean Strickland used to be training partners, and they have, from what I saw, somewhat similar styles. So when they go against each other, I could definitely see, when I was watching the Vettori fight against Hermansson, I saw Strickland as Vettori, and I didn't like the look for Hermansson. I just don't see a huge path to victory other than the wrestling, which I think Strickland will be able to negate. So
yeah,
it's
definitely not a confident dog play for me. It's not the most confident dog play on this card. There's a couple more coming up, but I think he definitely has more of a chance than people are giving him, and I think he has more of a chance than the almost plus 200 price tag suggests. Anyways, moving on down the line, co-main event, we have Punahele Soriano minus 200 versus Nick Maximov plus 160.
Such a good fight.
Such a good fight, but I just don't understand why this is the co-main event. I think it's because Nick Maximov is an honorary Diaz brother. Anyways, my take on this, starting with Maximov, he fought on Contender Series at heavyweight and weighed in at 209 pounds, which is fucking hilarious. His wrestling and his ground transitions are really where he shines. Like, those are his best weapons by far. His striking is serious work in progress, and his striking defense is absolutely terrible. From what I see, he walks forwards with his hands down and tries to force himself into wrestling, and he gets hit doing it. He also only landed 14 strikes in his UFC debut against Cody Brundage, and he looked tired in round 3 with his wrestling-heavy style. So his cardio could be suspect, but there's not too much to base that off of, so I put an asterisk by that, because after wrestling and doing all those ground transitions for 3 rounds, anybody's going to be tired. Punahele Soriano, man, he's got serious power. His right hand is nasty and it's accurate. He was also a high school wrestling standout, so my thoughts are that he's going to be able to keep the fight standing. But his cardio might be even worse than Maximov's, which is a huge problem for me. So the way I see this is that it's basically just a battle of who gasses first. If Maximov is able to get the fight to the ground in the first round, while they're still dry, and if he's able to use his transitions to threaten subs and make Puna work and think really hard, that's going to spell trouble for Puna, and he'll probably gas. But more likely, I think Puna catches Maximov as he tries to carelessly walk into wrestling range, as he does. So my pick is Puna by KO, and in big letters on my notes next to it, I have apple pie shitter, because this is my potential apple pie shitter of the night, meaning the pick is Puna Soriano, but do not build your parlays around him. Do not wager a lot of money on him, because I can totally see Maximov winning this fight. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you in a lot of what you said, and I think it's also important to note, and I don't care. I am turning into the biggest Eric Nixick fanboy, and I will put that out to the world. I love Eric Nixick. I will stand by that man for as long as I can right now. And Soriano is a Nixick fighter, and he has a 100% takedown defense in the UFC. He's never been taken down, which is very important against Maximov. But let's stay on Soriano for a second. He fought Todorovic. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, I apologize.
Duško Todorovic.
Yeah, he had wild feet, and he stomped around to try to throw off his opponents. And he threw a winging right hand that missed. It was very loopy, kind of over the top, a mix of a hook and an overhand, just very sloppy, and it missed. And right after I saw it, I paused the fight, said I'd like to see that go straight down the middle, and not even a minute later, he made the in-fight adjustment to throw it down the middle. I think one of the most impressive traits a fighter can have is being able to adjust mid-fight and at that mid-round. And I don't even think his coaches needed to tell him. He just figured it out. He's like, okay, wait, that needs to go right down the pipe. And right when he started going down the pipe with that right hand, glorious. He has nasty power. He does throw a high kick often with no setup, which could be an issue because against a guy like Maximov, he could be spitting out of it after clearing this and get taken down. Exactly.
Or catch it and take him down.
He straightened out the right hand, landed it hard. His head doesn't move off the center line, but I think working with Nixick, that's going to change. I think he's going to have slightly better head movement. He has good explosion, but he gave his opponents too many outs. And what I mean by that is his hands was working faster than his feet. And so as he was throwing his flurry of punches, he gave his opponents easy exits out to their right. So I think if he can use his footwork to really corner them and cut off the octagon, that would be very important to him winning this fight. And he just has nasty power. One thing is he didn't control the feet when he went to ground and pound, almost got him hurt. Headlock with head kick with no setup, but then he did land the straight right hand again. And moving on to Maximov, against Brundage, Maximov just has such a wrestler stance too. Like you see, he's hunched over, head in the right spot for wrestling. You just know right away this guy's going to try to get the fight to the ground. He looks very calm, and he'll explode, but with very loopy punches. His head doesn't move off the center line, which could be a big issue, as we mentioned that Soriano has nasty power. And he got his leg kicked off against Brundage. He doesn't work behind the jab well. He has a sloppy shot, but it works. He's very good at getting the fight to the ground. And I think he would have the advantage if the fight gets to the ground. So I could definitely see that being a way of victory for him. He did well against the cage. It's in the open that needs to work for him. If Maximov can force Soriano to the cage, I can definitely see him grabbing takedowns and winning rounds there. If the fight stays in the center of the octagon, I think it's Soriano's to take. I think he loses one round to the wrestling, but wins either by decision or gets a KO. So I'm definitely going to take Soriano here.
Nice. I agree. So we're on the same page. Moving on. Shavkat Rakhmonov minus 250 versus Carlston Harris plus 198. I don't have a ton of notes for this fight, so I'll just go ahead and start. Rakhmonov is undefeated, 14-0, 6-1 with a 77-inch reach, which is massive for the weight class. He's very well-rounded, clean striking, good grappling, great wrestling, and he's very physically imposing. His first UFC win choked out Cowboy Oliveira. Then he choked out Michael Prazeres, two UFC vets. Each of them been fighting in the UFC since 2015 or earlier, so this dude is a real serious prospect. But Harris is also a problem. He's also 6 foot tall with a 76-inch reach, so these guys are very similar in size. Also, he's a great grappler with some heavy hands of his own. I've backed him twice so far against prospects Impa Kasaganai and Christian Aguilera. I think he was a dog against both of them, and he finished them both. This guy's super aggressive and well-rounded. This is just such a crazy matchup. I'm really struggling with who to pick, and because of that, man, I'm picking Harris. Just because I've backed him twice so far as an underdog, and I'd love to do it again. Rakhmonov is seriously a talented prospect, but I'm going to lean with the guy who's been taking out prospects since he got to the UFC. So for plus 200, I have to go with the ultra live dog in Harris. What's your take?
Yeah, like you said, Shavkat is a very good prospect, and like we mentioned either last episode or a few episodes ago, in a few years, this welterweight division is going to be in some very good hands. I think he's going to be right up there in the title picture in a few years. He has good striking offense. He does get caught on the feet. We've seen him been hit hard, but we've also seen Harris been hit hard. Both these guys are finishers who don't get finished. So I think they've been finished once between the two of them. And Shavkat is 14-0, 7 knockouts, 7 submissions, and I think Harris has 10 victories due to stoppage as well. I think it's nasty. Shavkat has a very good ground game, but I do think this is the first time he's going to fight in the UFC where he doesn't have the advantage there. I think Harris's grappling is very good. He has nasty chokes, and he got one choke in his fight with what might be the most beautiful sprawl I've ever seen, and then he just locked up a choke. I think he's very dangerous. But when it comes to the feet and when it comes to wrestling, grappling exchanges and moving from position to position, I just think Shavkat is slightly sharper in every aspect, and that's the reason why I'm just going to have to go with the prospect who's just on an absolute heater, and just being slightly better in everything could be a reason. And I'm not going to tell you Shavkat straight up. I'm going to tell you Shavkat, and probably over 1.5 rounds, probably goes the distance too.
Mm-hmm. I have Harris by finish in my notes just because both these guys are such killers. I could see somebody getting finished. But also I was sitting in class thinking this morning, sometimes when both guys are killers, it ends up being more of a chess match.
That's what I was thinking, because when you have two
guys... And if you're really into that, the fight doesn't go the distance prop is over plus 200, so that might be something to look into.
Yeah, because you have two high-level finishers. People are always going to expect that the fight gets finished. So the prop that the fight goes the distance is going to be nasty. And if you really want to bet this fight, I would say don't bet Shavkat straight up. I would say take Harris at the underdog as a hedge bet with the main bet on Shavkat by decision.
Mm-hmm. I like it. All right, moving on down the line. We have Smiling Sam Alvey, plus 310, fighting short notice replacement Brendan Allen at minus 390. You want to start us off with this one?
I've never seen a short notice replacement been this much of a favorite, dude.
It's ridiculous.
What did I texted you. I was like, Sam Alvey just wants to die, dude.
And he can't catch a break. Like, what a tough short notice replacement. Compared to who he was going to fight, he was going to fight Phil Hawes, who maybe besides Sam Alvey is probably the worst fighter in the division.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. God bless Sam Alvey, because he is the definition of anywhere, anybody, any place. I think in like his last 5 fights, his opponents have been changed 2+ times every time. But let's be honest, he hasn't won a fight since 2018. I have no idea why this man hasn't been cut, but screw it, all power to him. He wants to go out there and keep fighting. I guess keep letting him do it. I think Brendan Allen is a great fighter who's fought some really tough guys. I think his record doesn't emulate how good he is since he's been facing such tough competition that I think this is the perfect fight for him to... sorry, my brother's calling me. He's probably about Vegas, but whatever. And I think he's going to be able to get that. That really threw me off. My bad. No, Sam Alvey is not a good fighter. He will not win this fight.
All right. Yes, I think Sam Alvey knows something that the UFC doesn't want us to know, because he's on a 6-fight losing streak, and that makes no sense because the UFC is cutting guys who have won their last fight. So Sam Alvey knows where the bodies are buried, and why is he still even here? With that being said, he averages around 50 strikes in a 3-round fight, which is abysmal. But all of his losses are kind of razor close, and when I watch them, I get the sense that he could have won them if he would just let his hands go. I was really looking forward to smashing the KO prop against Chinny Phil Hawes, who's probably my least favorite fighter in the UFC. Fuck Phil Hawes forever. But then he gets fucking Brendan Allen as a last-minute replacement, man. What a tough break. Sam Alvey, he's a decent defensive wrestler. He's also got a decent chin, and he has some decent hands, but he just has problems putting everything together and staying loose and letting his strikes go. But with his job supposedly on the line, you have to think that this is the fight that he's going to let his shit go. You'll hope.
Yeah, I have a question. I read somewhere, I don't know if it's true, I was wondering if you knew. Did Sam Alvey go to a real camp this time? Because I think
I'm not sure.
his wife used to train him, which didn't make much sense to me. I think that could possibly be why he's losing fights. But we do. But if he goes to a real camp and gets some real training, I mean, I guess I could see him putting it together.
Yeah, definitely.
I forgot this group chat existed, dude.
Brendan Allen, to me, he looks like he should be really impressive, but for some reason, recently he's been having some trouble putting it together. He's really solid wins over contenders like Kevin Holland, Kyle Dawkins, and Carl Roberson. He's a great grappler, but he only has decent wrestling, and he's got heavy hands. But he's not so decent chin got exposed when he got upset by Chris Curtis. The action man, my boy. I love him. Anyway, his output is pretty good, but in the Strickland fight, he got outstruck 94-51, and the pressure was too much for him. But at the end of the day, who doesn't get outvolumed by Sean Strickland? He's also big for 185, which is where he normally fights, but this fight is taking place at 205. Man, I would love to bet on Sam Alvey here, especially at the price, but I just can't in good conscience advise anybody to bet on Sam Alvey after a 6-fight losing streak. So the pick is going to be Brendan Allen all the way, but I'm not touching this fight with a 10-foot pole at the price that it's set at, and I'm not touching any props. But the official pick is Allen by sub. Moving on down the line, we have the real tough finale. Bryan Battle plus 138 versus Tresean Gore minus 170. I also want nothing to do with this fight from a betting perspective.
Such a good fight.
It is a great matchup, but I want nothing to do with it from a betting perspective, and I'll tell you why. This fight was supposed to be the tough finale, but Gore got hurt, and they threw in Urbino, which was cruel because Bryan Battle ran through him. Bryan had an awesome amateur run. He has wins over Impa Kasaganai and Cody Brundage, both UFC contenders now. He's 6-1 as a pro, but he doesn't have his strongest strength of schedule. Most of his wins, if you look at them, are against guys who are winless or only had 3 total fights. Meanwhile, Tresean Gore, he looked great on Tough. He was explosive, he was powerful, and all around, he's just an incredibly athletic fighter. He should be the more athletic fighter against Bryan Battle, but he's only 3-0, which is incredibly green to be fighting in the UFC. Granted, I do put more stock in him than I would another fighter who's 3-0 because he was on Tough. I love betting on Tough guys because you know after what they went through on Tough that they're in the fight game for the right reason. Because Tough is really fucking hard. It's just really hard to go move away from your family, move away from your normal training camp, live with your opponents, train all day, every day. Your life basically revolves around fighting, not to mention there's cameras in your face 24/7, and you're on a reality show. So I love betting on Tough guys. You know that they're guaranteed to fight for your money and that they're going to put in a battle and that they have skills that they picked up on Tough. Yeah, so my take on this fight is that Gore definitely has the ability to end it early, but I'm going to go with Battle's UFC experience to win this one. He's already made his debut. He's got the jitters out of the way, and almost as importantly, so is his team. They've worked together in the UFC octagon, which is important. Tresean Gore and his coaches have not been through this together yet. Battle also looks to be in the best shape of his career coming into this fight week. On his Instagram, he looks amazing. So I think if Gore takes his time to figure out Battle's awkward style or has a slow start for any reason, maybe some jitters, that Battle's going to end up dictating the pace and range of the fight, and Gore's going to find himself playing catch-up, which I don't know if he'll be capable of doing. So my pick is going to be Battle by decision, but I also wouldn't be surprised by a Gore first-round knockout.
Yeah, like you said, Bryan Battle is in phenomenal shape. He looks absolutely yoked right now. He definitely has the advantage on the ground. He's very lengthy, but I find him a little one-dimensional when he fights. He kind of just uses basic striking to try to get the fight to the ground, and Gore's stand-up really, really impressed me. I love Tresean Gore. He has great feet, his kicks. He has power from every limb, which is important for me. He works the body well. He's great technique. He's precise. He's fast. And the biggest question when you're facing a wrestler is not, can you not get taken down? It's when you get taken down, can you stand back up? And I think Gore has showed an ability to do that, but Battle is a very good wrestler. So I think this is such a tough fight, and this might be the fight I'm looking forward to the most, but I'm going to go with a gut feeling and say that Gore is once again slightly better in every aspect on the feet. Actually, he's definitely better in every aspect on the feet. And this is one of the odd times where I'm going to take the striker over the grappler. So I have Gore winning, as I think he'll be able to stay off the canvas more than people expect him to.
Cool. So another spot where we disagree. The viewers always like when we disagree.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on down the line, we have Juicy J, Julian Erosa at minus 320. I have to laugh when I say that. Versus Steven Peterson plus 245. I think this is the first time Julian Erosa has been a favorite since 2018.
Yeah, I thought it was 2016, but I easily could be wrong.
Okay, yeah, that's insane. Well,
anyway, a few years.
He hasn't been in the UFC for that long, but outside of the UFC, he's probably been an underdog for more. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's since 2016.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This fight is very interesting. I think it could be a lot of fun. Erosa's just a veteran. Erosa's longer and taller. I think he's just better in every aspect. Erosa, he might not have the best chin in the world, but I think he'll be able to outclass Peterson. Peterson isn't the best striker, but I think if he catches Julian Erosa, it could be a tough night for Erosa. It's really going to be a spray and pray for Peterson. He's just kind of going to bite down on his mouthpiece and really just throw. I think Rosa has every advantage, and I think he's going to win this fight, but I wouldn't touch it at the money. Yeah, I wouldn't touch it at that price, though, because...
You should turn your ringer off.
It's on my computer. It's all over there.
Get up and turn it off.
I will. And I'll edit that out. Yeah, but I think every advantage goes to Erosa other than the chin. So I wouldn't touch it at that money, but I definitely think Erosa's going to win.
Yeah. All right. My take on this fight, Julian Erosa, man, he's an offensive fireball, but he has a massive Achilles heel right on his chin. He looked very solid against great striking competition like Alan Jourdain and Sean Woodson, but Sungwoo Choi totally exposed his chin pretty badly, and it's no secret that he gets chin checked regularly. That being said, Steven Ocho Peterson is absolutely not the guy that's going to check Erosa's chin. He only has one knockout victory in the UFC, and it was a spinning back fist over Martin Bravo in 2019. And he's not landing anything like that against Julian Erosa, I'll tell you that much. So my quick take on this fight is that Peterson is literally outgunned everywhere by Juicy J. But like we said, Juicy J hasn't been a favorite since 2016, so I'm absolutely not paying minus 320 for him, and I cannot, in good conscience, advise any of you to either. The pick is Erosa by KO, but staying away from this fight at all costs.
Was he an Ultimate Fighter? I think he was. Erosa.
He was.
Yeah.
He was. Anyways, moving on down the line. Miles Johns, minus 215 versus John Castañeda, plus 172. And this is another underdog that I like a lot. John Castañeda is super well-rounded. His UFC debut was against a much larger Nathaniel Wood, and he looked awesome even though he lost. Then he got a huge knockout over Eddie Wineland, which was just amazing. It showcased his power. He's a very serviceable grappler as well, and he's quite well-rounded. But really, he weaponizes pace and power and has amazing cardio. Miles Johns, he's got some good skills himself. He's athletic, great boxing, good wrestling. However, the gas tank, the volume, and the ring IQ are all very, very suspect to me. He's explosive, but that style takes a toll on his gas tank early. It reminds me a lot of Tony Gravely, who we just saw fight at UFC 270. If he doesn't get that early knockout, he could be in trouble. I don't take a lot of stock in his last two victories either, against Kevin Natividad or whatever, and against Anderson Dos Santos. He only landed like 40 strikes in that Natividad fight, and it was a third-round finish, so he could have landed more strikes. Like I said, his output is suspect, and his fight IQ really worries me. In his debut against Cole Smith, where he only landed 31 strikes even though he won, he shot some really poorly timed and sloppy-looking takedowns and even got his back taken at one point. So on paper, Miles Johns looks like the more skilled fighter, and it looks like he should be able to win this fight and mix up his takedowns with his striking. However, that's assuming that he can keep a tight game plan for 15 minutes, and I have little faith that he can do that. So if he makes any mistakes or poor decisions, which he will, Castañeda is going to capitalize and probably finish the fight. So my pick is Castañeda by KO.
The famous Family Fights disagreement.
That's why we call it the Family Fights podcast.
Yeah. I think something that's very important to take into note is that Castañeda is not very active, and Johns is pretty active. I like to see active fighters. I think they perform better in the octagon when it's not like a huge main event. When it becomes like the big guys at like the top 5 in each division, I don't take into account activity, but when you're not top in division, I definitely look at it. In a fight this close, I think this is a very close fight. Johns is a great grappler, and he has decent striking, and he fights often. He's got a pretty strong chin. He's been KO'd by a flying knee, but he won't make that same mistake. Johnson's beat some really good guys. He beat Adrian Yanez, which was impressive. But Castañeda is definitely the better striking. He looks good on the feet, to be honest. He looks really good. The question is, can Johns get it to the ground? And I think this is such a close matchup, and I think it's definitely going to be a really fun fight to watch. But when you have a matchup this close, I'm going to have to give the tiebreaker to the wrestler. Because in my opinion, in the wrestler versus striker conversation, I'm going to lean towards the grappler, because I think grapplers can determine where the fight ends up better than a striker can. Because they always say, oh, every round starts on a feet. Yeah, but it's usually the grappler's decision if that fight stays standing or goes to the ground. And I think that Johns will get caught once or twice. Like you said, he will make a mistake, but I think he'll be able to get through that. And I think he'll be able to take it down and grind out a decision, probably 29-28.
I see it. All right, moving on. Hakeem Dawodu -188 versus Mike Trizano +152. And I got to tell you, this is another live dog spot for sure that I'm very tempted to take. What do you think?
This is such an exciting matchup. If you really want to see a good fight, I would watch this one. This is a Muay Thai fighter versus a boxer, and that's a really interesting type of matchup. Everyone always talks about, like I just mentioned, wrestler versus striker versus grappler. But when you talk about striking, there's multiple arts to striking, and Muay Thai versus boxing is a very interesting matchup to watch. Hakeem throws better volume and is overall the better striker. He has great kicks.
What?
Really?
Excuse me. You just say his volume is great. His output is terrible. He won over Kyle Bochenek, and meanwhile he got outstruck 103-42, and it was a split decision. All three of his wins are by split decision in the UFC, which means lots of judges don't like his style. You can't win fights with low output, and the judges don't like his style because he has low output. I can't believe you just said that. That's hilarious.
I think he has better output than people say. He is the better kicks, but Tiziano's boxing is very clean. I think the key to victory for Tiziano here is to really pressure him, because when you have a Muay Thai fighter, the one way to really negate his kicks is to get inside, because when you're inside really close to a guy, he can't kick you, and that's where the boxing advantage is really going to come into hand. This is a really tough fight for me to pick. I think that Hakeem could catch him with kicks. I really have it right here. My gut says Tiziano. I really want to see him pressure him, maybe even get a takedown, and I think he'll grind out a decision here.
Take the dog. Yeah. So like I was saying, Hakeem's output isn't necessarily low, but he doesn't fight with any forward pressure. He prefers to sit back and pick his shots, which is a style that a lot of judges don't like, which is evidenced in his 3 split decision wins, which means every time he wins, there's one judge that thinks he lost that fight, which is a big deal, because it really all just depends on who the judges are that day, and that's a really big red flag to me, meaning a lot of judges don't like his style, which is not how you want to fight in the UFC. And Mike Trizano has the striking style to cause problems for a counter striker like Dawodu. Trizano may lack some of the striking skills, but he makes up for it with relentless pressure and sick cardio. He also has some great ring IQ, which he showed off in his last win against Ludovic Klein, who's a much better striker than both Trizano and Dawodu. Meanwhile, Trizano realized he couldn't strike with Klein, and then he secured the victory by wrestling, which is something that I don't think Hakeem is capable of dealing with or doing himself. So I think this is a good opportunity to give you guys a little gambling philosophy lesson as well. If you're looking at a matchup like this and you have a big favorite, and that favorite typically has split decision wins and very close fights, you don't want to lay your money on him. Even if you want to pick him, that is not somebody you want to lay your money on. I want to be holding a dog ticket in a situation like that because I'm going to be getting the benefit of the doubt that 2 of the 3 judges aren't going to like his style. It's just not a confident pick. To be paying almost minus 200 for somebody with a style like that, you just can't do it. Anyways, that's my take. Like I said before, I also love betting on tough alums, so I'm definitely taking Trizano by decision in this fight. You got anything else to add?
No. I think
right.
you said it really well there.
Moving on down the line, Marc-André Barriault -115 versus Chidi and Njokuani, making his long-awaited UFC debut at -105. It's kind of funny that Chidi's finally making his UFC debut after watching his brother get absolutely smashed in Eagle FC last week, like just destroyed. But yeah, Chidi is a Muay Thai practitioner, fought most of his career at Bellator. I honestly wasn't too impressed with his Contender Series victory. And Marc-André Barriault, he's a marauder. He's finally coming into his own. I feel like he's picking up his style. He's starting to get some victories. This dude is constantly moving forward, constantly throwing punches, and his chin is cast iron, which he uses to get in range and smash you. I think this is an absolutely terrible matchup for Chidi to make his UFC debut, and I'm really not sure how he's going to fight off his back foot, because that's exactly how he's going to have to fight against Mark, because he usually dictates exactly how the striking exchanges go. But I don't see Mark letting him do that. So I think Mark is getting the knockout in this fight. What's your take?
The classic family fight agreement.
Let's go.
It's an agreement here. I think Barriault spoils the debut. How do you pronounce his last name?
Who knows? Something French.
Yeah, it's cool. I think the pressure by Barriault is nasty. I love pressure fighters. Not being one myself, it's very refreshing to watch them. I think they're much more entertaining to watch. I feel like they win fights more often. And if you look at... I'm gonna try this actually. Njokuani, if you look at his losses, he gets beat by pressure. I went back and I watched his losses. He lost because his opponents pressured the fuck out of him. I think the striking is really good here, but the pressure is just going to be the difference. And I even see a possible takedown for Barriault. I think he's going to outclass Njokuani, and I think he wins, because if you're ever in a fight and you're facing someone who has a striking advantage on you, the last thing you want to do is sit back. If someone has a striking advantage on you, you need to be pressuring them, because the more you're throwing at them, the more they're thinking about that, and the less they can be throwing it. As long as you protect yourself correctly when you do it, that's the way to stop a good striker, and I think that Barriault could do that very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're both in agreement. Moving on, Alexis Davis -245 versus Julia Stoliarenko +194. That's my nickname for Julia Stoliarenko. Stoliarenko. I don't have too many notes for this fight. What about you?
Davis is not on a heater, 1-4 in her last 5. She's fought some tough girls. She's had some good competition. She's in a really tough spot. She has crazy experience in the UFC. She gets eaten alive. She eats alive fighters who are not ranked, but she gets eaten alive by those who are ranked. So she's in a very kind of mid spot in her career. Even striking, but Davis has the wrestling advantage, and I think she takes this by a boring female MMA decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, Davis is 37 years old. She's lost 4 of her last 5. That being said, she's pretty much only fought top talent in the division, except for Sabina Mazo, who she won, and Sabina's a total fraud. Anyways, Alexis Davis is well-rounded. She's a grinder, but she just isn't what she used to be. Call it the age, call it having a kid, I don't know. Unfortunately, some fighters come back great from having a kid. Some female fighters come back great from having a kid. Like, you look at Mackenzie Dern, she's doing great now. Well, she was doing great for a while after having a baby.
If Dern could add a power double leg, she will win belts.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, yeah, that messes up a lot of female fighters. Flip side of this coin, Stoliarenko, she's just the armbar queen. She has 10 wins by armbar in her career. But she lost her first.
Don't call her the armbar queen. That's Ronda Rousey.
She lost her first 2 UFC fights and just got completely outclassed in both of them. Like, skill discrepancy to the max. I think this is exactly the kind of fight that Davis needs to get her mojo back, if she has any mojo left. Maybe it's a retirement fight. Who knows? I think
both these girls are 1 loss away from getting cut, too.
Yeah, well, if Stoliarenko doesn't land the lucky armbar, she loses the fight 100%. I think Davis is better everywhere and has the experience to back it up. Davis by decision, But wouldn't be surprised if Stinko pulls the armbar. Expect the unexpected. It is women's MMA, so be on the lookout for that. Don't touch this fight with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on. Just a couple more fights. Danilo Marquez plus 330 versus Jailton Almeida minus 450. I'm going to start with this one because Jailton Almeida is my fucking boy. I was so high on him when he fought on the Contender Series. I made a lot of money with that fight. He was a big underdog against the Russian Nasruddinov, who was really hyped up, and he destroyed him in under 2 minutes. Jailton Almeida is an absolute freak of nature. He has insane strength. He has awesome grappling and also has some power in his hands. He won 5 pro grappling matches in 2021 and 3 MMA fights. He's a total beast. He said multiple times that he looks up to Khabib and models his style after him, and it totally shows since he out-wrestled and subbed the Russian on Contender Series. Dude's just an absolute freak. And yeah, I was just really disappointed in Danilo Marquez when I was watching his film. I thought he was a lot better than he was. And then I watched his film yesterday and was very disappointed. Look, he's a decent grappler, but his striking leaves a lot to be desired, and he seems very stiff and uncomfortable in the cage at most times. I think Almeida's an absolute beast. He hasn't lost a combat sports contest since January 2018, and he's going to absolutely run through Marquez. Probably subs him early, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he gets a ground and pound stoppage. This is my lock of the night. Consider it.
I agree.
Almeida by finish is the answer.
I think Kyle said it perfectly, so I'll just go through it really quickly. Almeida's a fucking beast. Like Kyle said, he just wins fights at will. I think he has every advantage in the world over Marquez. If this guy has an impressive victory here, gets his $50,000 bonus, definitely a guy I'm going to keep looking out for because he looks like an absolute mauler. Easy win here for Almeida.
Mm-hmm. Moving on down the line, Jason Witt plus 118 versus Philip Rowe minus 144. What do you got for us?
I think this is a 50-50 fight, to be honest. It's really just a pick 'em. Rowe needs to defend the takedowns. If it goes to the ground, it's Witt's fight to lose, meaning that Witt could easily win this when it goes to the ground. Rowe has questionable takedown defense at 50%, and Rowe's been taken down in every single fight he's been in the UFC. The real question is, can Witt's chin hold up to the striking of Rowe, because Witt has a glass jaw. And Rowe's got some pretty good striking. I want to see good pressure to negate the striking from Witt. Witt being the pressurer, and that will open up the wrestling. A good chance that this fight is ended by a Rowe KO, but my gut's going to give it to the wrestler in Witt.
Damn. Okay, I'm gonna disagree with you there.
The famous family fights disagreement.
We need like a button in post that we need somebody to like record.
iCarly, like the little thing she had. She's
exactly.
Like,
and then in post you can go through and add them whenever we disagree.
Jason,
we'll work on that for the next.
Jason has like a whole
episodes.
In his apartment. He's got like a whole button panel that controls
like
everything in his house. Yeah, it's sick. I'll have him make me one.
All right, cool. Well, my take on this fight. Like Matthew said, Jason Witt has an absolutely terrible chin and an even sketchier gas tank. He has decent takedowns, but what I notice is that most of his takedowns rely on force and not technique, which is why he gasses himself out a lot faster than he should. Because if you're using your muscles to score a takedown instead of technique, you're exerting a lot more energy than you need to, and that's not good. His last victory against Bryan Barberena was just terrible. He gassed so bad and almost got finished in round 3 like he was knocking on death's door. He deserved the win, but it did not inspire confidence. And with that being said, Philip Rowe is primarily a Muay Thai striker with a massive 80-inch reach, but he's also a BJJ black belt. He competes regularly on the BJJ pro scene, and he's competed against guys like Gordon Ryan, so you know that he can hold his own on the ground. However, his fight IQ to me looked kind of suspect. When I was watching his last fight against Orion Koski, it was a win, but it also didn't inspire confidence. It felt like he made some bad decisions, like forcing the clinch a couple times when he had Koski hurt, and also it looked like he was really too content to be sitting on his back in the first round, trying to fish for subs until Koski actually let him up, which was a bad decision by Koski. But it looked like Rowe would have sat there for the whole round if Koski let him. I think that's because his experience on the BJJ scene, he almost like thinks, yeah, come on, take me down. bring me to the ground. This is exactly what I want. Like, I'll just fish for subs. But, like, hello, this is MMA, and you never want to give
BJJ
up.
is much different in MMA because you're getting punched in the face at the same time.
Right. Well, and also in MMA, the judging is different, and you don't want to be giving up time on your back. So, with that being said, his fight IQ definitely worries me a little bit. But, yeah, my pick is Rowe. I think Witt definitely has a potential path to victory if he's able to score takedowns and hold down Rowe. And he also has James Krause in his corner, so he should be coming in with a good game plan. But I will never, ever, ever bet on Jason Witt and his glass chin. I think Philip Rowe uses that 80-inch reach to keep him at check and keep him away from him and not let him get his takedowns off. So the pick is Rowe by knockout. Moving on, down the line. Last fight, I have one sentence of notes for this fight, 2 sentences of notes for this fight because it's very, very simple. Malcolm Gordon plus 210 versus Dennis Bondar minus 265. Gordon's fast. He's shown some athleticism, but he has no chin, and he can be exploited on the ground. Sentence 1. Sentence 2. This is easily a setup fight for Bondar, who has great wrestling and power in his hands. Bondar by first round KO. Boom. That's it. That's all I got. What do you got?
All I got for this is Bondar is bigger. Bondar is going to have a massive grappling advantage. Gordon doesn't have good takedown defense. Bondar is just better. It's going to be a finish to start the card. Bondar by finish, most likely first round.
Yep, I like it. All right. Moving on to our best bets. This is where we each give you our favorite straight bet, our favorite prop bet, and our favorite parlay of the card. So, starting off with favorite straight bet, I think I am going to go with my guy, Mike Trizano, the underdog. I really like him to beat Hakeem Dawodu. He is my straight bet of the card. What about you?
Soriano is going to be my straight bet, actually. But also, if you want just to make a quick buck, Almeida definitely, even though he's not a great money.
Yeah, it's not great money,
but it's still a lock. If you've been on a bad betting streak and you need to see a W in the win column, give an Almeida 1 or 2 units.
Yeah, so my prop bet actually is going to be Almeida by sub because I really like this fight. I really like Almeida, and I want to get some action on it. So I'm going to make that price tag a little better by going with the prop. If you don't want to go by sub, you could definitely still go Almeida inside the distance because that, to me, is a lock.
My lock is going to be a Bondar finish.
Okay, I like it. Well, is that your prop bet?
Yeah.
Okay. Parlays. I'm going. Let's go Philip Rowe. We're going to throw in Bryan Battle, and we're going to throw in Jack Hermansson. This is a little high stakes parlay. Got 2 underdogs in there, but Jack Hermansson is in there, and hopefully if we get to that point, we're going to hedge with Sean Strickland. So Philip Rowe should pull through for us. Bryan Battle hopefully pulls through for us. And if that happens, we'll be sitting in a pretty good position to either cash out if you can, and if you want to, if your sportsbook offers that, or take the hedge on Sean Strickland. What's your parlay?
My parlay is going to be almost opposite from you. I'm going to give you Sean Strickland. I'm going to give you Soriano. And then I'm going to add in, obviously, throw Almeida in there. And then Tresean to give that boost for the underdog.
Cool. I like it. Well, we are just about at an hour. This has been another episode of the Family Fights podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're working every week on improving every aspect of the show for you guys. We're working on getting better audio quality. Obviously, we're getting better at our breakdowns. I feel like third breakdown, I'm getting way more comfortable with it. My notes are getting more comprehensive. I feel like my eye for film is getting better, even though I've already been doing this for years,
Yeah. No, just quick apology. You got background noise today. I got people working on the house, and I am in no place to tell them to be quiet since they are doing wonderful work for me and my family. Also, apology for the blank prison wall today. I got to get those posters back up now that the walls are repainted. We got my brother helping us get better audio, as well as some of my friends. We're going to keep working for you guys. As long as you guys are here, we're going to keep working our asses off.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We hit our 50 download milestone this week. So
yeah, thank you all.
Pretty big for us. And we consider that a big win because we do absolutely no marketing. Over here at the Family Fights podcast, I believe in perfecting our product before we push the marketing because, you can't put your full energy into multiple things at once. So once we absolutely perfect the quality of this show, we're going to ramp up the marketing. But 50 downloads with no marketing is awesome. Thank you guys so much. We're super excited to do this for you, and we're happy you enjoy it. So Matthew's shaking. He looks like he wants to say something.
I've had to pee since the Strickland breakdown. Not going to lie.
All right. We love you guys. We're going to let Matthew go pee. Adios. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. The Family Fights podcast releases every Monday and every Friday. In those episodes, we look back at the most recent card, give reactions and updates on the UFC and other MMA organizations. If you'd like to reach out, Twitter and Instagram is The Family Fights Pod, or you can reach out via email at familyfightspodcast@gmail.com. Have a great day, everyone.
Family fights. Let's do it.